YouTube, this is Alex Shindell. Today we will be learning about simple layout design. Our objectives are as follows. We will start by learning to design our layout using both the graphical and XML-based layout design features. Then we will be using a linear layout to design our basic layout for our app, and we will finally be accessing views from the layout by using IDs. So let's get started with our first app. We'll name it Layout Design. We can leave the default configurations here because we are making an app for Android phones and tablets, of course, and it can certainly run on Android 4.4 KitKat as it'll be a very basic app. We'll be using an empty activity for this app, and we can just leave it as a main activity because it'll be our only activity for the app. And so I'm just gonna skip the rest of this waiting as the app takes a very long time to build. And so we're finally in Android Studio, and you can see the red finally going away here, and now we're initializing our actual view of the design, and there we go. So we have a simple layout already made for us here, a text view that says hello world, and you can see that I have my theme here might be different than yours, but if we click this button you can see there are plethora of different themes you can choose from. So let's go with the dark theme. It's, well, very dark, but it's a bit of a pain to read, honestly. I can't really read it, so let's go and switch that back to light, and there we go, we're back to our light. And so let's go to the text side of this right down here, and so we're going to switch our relative layout to a linear layout as stated before in our objectives, and we're also going to want to get rid of our padding because the padding just makes it so that the linear layout here doesn't extend to the very edges of the screen. It is 16 dp out. So we're going to replace that with Android orientation, and we'll set it to vertical, and I'll explain that later. So the basic goal for our app today is to have a text box and then to have a button where when we press the button it'll change the text of the text view that we have up in the corner here, the tiny one, and it'll set the text of the text view to the text of the text box. So let's change back to our text here, and we'll just create our button first, and we'll set it layout width is wrap content and the layout height wrap content, and then we're going to add on to the button Android text, and we'll say edit, and then we're going to add in an edit text which will be like a text box, and we'll say layout width wrap content and layout height wrap content, except for that layout width we sort of want to keep the edit text visible to everyone, so let's change that to match parent so it'll span the entire width of the screen, and so now it's quite visible there. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the linear layout here. So if you remember, if we go back into the text, we have the Android orientation set to vertical. So the whole purpose of that is so that we can have all of these things, the text view and the button and the edit text, all going in a line from top to bottom. If we had set the orientation to horizontal, then it would go from left to right. So let's go back to the text and actually do that. So if we set it to horizontal, then we go back to the design side, we can see it's going from left to right like that. So we don't like that, so let's go and change it back. But it looks like the button should rather be in the center. So let's try and change that. So we'll go Android layout gravity, and we'll say center. And let's go back to design, and look at that. There it is, right in the center. Alright, so that's looking sort of good, except this whole thing is all quite crowded up at the top there. So let's try to fix that. So we'll add some space between the button and the text view. So let's do that by Android layout margin top, and give it 10 dp to start. Not even close to quit. So let's change that to 50. It's a little bit better. Let's go with 70. This would be pretty good. So let's copy that. And we'll paste it down with the edit text. Yeah, looks pretty good, I'd say. So our next step would be to code in our main activity.java file. But before we do that, we do need to actually make sure that our text view and button and text are visible. So we'll do that by having Android colon ID equals et plus ID, which is saying that we are adding an ID called text view, or we can just call it text. And next we have the button Android colon ID et plus equals et plus ID slash, let's say, button. There we go. And at long last we have the edit text. So Android colon ID et plus ID, and we could just call it edit text. And so now it's time to go to our main activity.java file and actually reference these views. So we'll start with our text view, and we'll name it text view. There we go. And then we'll go with our button, and we'll name it button, and Alt Enter to import. And then we'll wrap it up with edit text and edit text. And so now we can actually put these in the onCreate method, which is sort of like an initializer. It allows us to initialize our variables. On the creation of the app, we will have our text view, our button, and our edit text initialized. But we need to make sure that we have the text view right here corresponding with the text view in our activity main.xml file. So that is on create. We'll have our text view equal to, and we'll cast it to a text view, and we'll use a method called findViewById right there, and we'll pass it r.id dot, and it'll be text, but we don't seem to find that. So I guess we'll just have to type it out, text, and okay, it worked, there we go. Something just messed up with the IntelliJ for a second there. So the reason that works is that we have the r.id.text here, and in here we were adding the ID et plus ID, and we were adding a text. So we're adding the ID of text there, and that's why we can later refer to it back here with findViewById, because we're passing it the ID of text, and that refers to that view. So when we do findViewById, it returns that view, and we cast it to a text view. So next we'll continue that with our button, and same thing as above, we'll cast it to a button, and we'll do findViewById r.id dot button. And we'll wrap that up with edit text equals, and we'll cast it to edit text, findViewById r.id dot edit text. So now we can do some fun coding. So basically we're going to have a method where we take when we hit the button, we take the text from the edit text and set it to the text of the text view. And so to do that, we're going to write a method, public void, and we'll call it setText, So basically, whenever we have a method we want to call when a button's clicked, we need to pass it a view as a parameter. So we'll type in here view, and we'll just call it v, and we need to import the view. So we'll have alt enter and import class. There we go. And so now we're going to take the text view, and we want to set its text to the edit text dot get text dot toString. And so it's really that simple. We're just setting the text of the text view to the text of the edit text. But there's still one more thing to do. We do need to go back into the activity main.xml file, and we have to make sure that the button, when it's clicked, calls that method. So we'll go Android on click equals, and right there, it's already for us, set text. So basically, on the click of the button, it'll call the method set text. And so now let's switch back to the design feature. And so basically we have our edit text here, and we click a button, and it'll change the text view to the edit text. But the text of that text view is tiny, so let's go back to the text side of this, and we'll go Android text size inside the text view, of course, and we'll change it to, say, 10 SP. And so let's check that, and it's even smaller. So let's change the size to, say, 20 SP. That's a bit better. So let's copy that now. Copy it to the button, and copy it to the edit text. And so now everything looks pretty good. Good text size, good everything. Everything should work fine now. So let's run it. And so if you don't see a device join up here on the select deployment target, then you should refer to the first video in this series about connecting an Android device, like if you get a screen like this. But so if you don't know how to do it so that it comes back like that, then go to that video. But in any case, I will be skipping the rest of this long wait as Gradle builds. So here we are in our app, and look at that. It's got a nice little UI there. And so we have our edit text and our button and our text view. So what if we select our edit text here, and we say hi, exclamation point, of course, and we hit the button, and look at that, right at the top it says hi. And I must say, that is pretty cool. And look at that, the app agrees with us. So now we're back in Android Studio, and it's a pretty good app, I must say, but it would be cool to expand on it by, say, that text view. We could change the text size of it, that is, make it quite easy to do so, because right now it's stuck at 20 SP. But what if we were to use, say, a seek bar? Sorry, let me adjust this. A seek bar right here, which is sort of like a slider to do that, and we could just put it right underneath the button here. And so that would be a very nice way to do that, I'd say. So let's go back into our text side here, and in the seek bar we can copy the margin top and paste it right into the seek bar. And you'll notice here that the ID of the seek bar is already set to seek bar. And so that's a benefit of using the palettes here, the sidebar. It automatically puts those things in. It does the layout width and the layout height and the ID, and sets them to the most logical things there. And so now we have a nice little UI. And so let's switch back to our main activity. And so next point of order will be to actually add in our seek bar. So seek bar, And next we will go into our onCreate method and we'll add it in there so we can initialize the seek bar. So seek bar equals, just as above, we cast it to a seek bar. So seek bar, and then find view by ID, r.id.seekbar, right there. Alright, and so we're going to also want to go seekbar.set max, because we want to actually figure out what the maximum value for our seek bar would be. So let's try to figure out what a good size would be for the text size maximum. So we'll go in and quickly check this out, and there's the text size, 20 SP. So let's change that to say 200. Oh god, that's way too big, way too big. Okay, let's have that to say 100. That's a bit better, but we could still go a bit smaller. Say, have that again to 100. I mean 50, sorry. Let's say 75. Yeah, that's perfect, 75. So we got 75 SP, but let's change that back to 20 for the actual default setting. So here we're back in the activity main method, and let's set the max back to 75, except we also want to make sure that we go minus 20, because we don't want to actually have the maximum there to be 75. We want it to be 75 minus 20 because we want the minimum to be 20, and I couldn't figure out how to actually set the minimum. So that'll be a sort of software way to do it. And so we'll go into here, and now we'll be able to set the text view. So we go text view.set text size, like that, and we'll get the progress of the seek bar. So seek bar dot get progress, like so. And we also want to make sure to add 20 to that, because we want to make sure that the minimum value will be 20 and the maximum value will be 75. So that should all work then. So now we have a working seek bar. We can set the text we can set the text size of our text view. And so let's just run it. A nice little feature about Gradle, by the way, is that once you've run the app once, you can generally just restart the app and it'll be working perfectly, and it'll be much faster. So here we're back in the app, and we can see we have a nice little seek bar there. So let's test it out. We say hello. Always have the exclamation point. And then we're changing, and look at that, the size, it works perfectly. So that will conclude our introduction to simple layout design. But don't worry, it'll get plenty more complicated as we learn more stuff. Anyways, to wrap this up, I would just like to say thank you for watching. If this video helped, please leave a comment or a thumbs up. Otherwise, this is Alex Findell signing out. Goodbye.